All right, let's hear from the Friends of Negro Spirituals, and then I have an in-studio guest who's going to tell us a little bit about the Reclamation Project.
How do you do, everybody? How do you do?
Well, I have an in-studio guest this morning that popped by to kind of help a sister out here and there. And he has a project called the Reclamation Project, and it is a unique twist on church. And so I want to introduce to some of you, or to all of you, Stanley Mackey, who actually happens to be my nephew. You've heard me announce The Amazing Race, the biblical edition. Well, he's the person who came up with this idea. It was his brainchild to do this. And they also have services out in nature. So they worship God in all of his splendor. So good morning, Stanley.
Good morning, Miss April, a.k.a. Auntie.
How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm good. I'm blessed. I'm blessed on a Saturday morning.
Yes, on your Sabbath morning. So you're in here before you're on your way to service, so I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the Reclamation Project.
So the Reclamation Project is this outreach. It's church, but it began as an outreach where we wanted to reach out to a number of audiences, in particular, the non-believing audience, atheists and agnostics. It was because of conversations that I remember having some years ago with some non-believers. They were sharing with me I asked them, what was it? What was it that made them become non-believers? And they all said that there was a turning point. For many of them, it was that they grew up in the church, but they had questions. And in a nutshell, the questions didn't get answered. And so it left them in a state of frustration. And eventually, there were competing arguments for answers to those questions. And they decided to go with those. And so the Reclamation Project was birthed with the goal of providing answers, a lot of scientific answers, a lot of answers to rather questions that warrant some science or some objectivity. So the Reclamation Project, in a nutshell, is a place where people can come, ask questions about God, about the earth's beginning, about various subject matter, and we do our best to first provide some science, objectivity, and we provide evidence.
Biblical evidence is what you're speaking of.
Well, it can be biblical, but it could also be external evidence. So, for example, one of the things that we discuss is whether Jesus was real or was he a fictitious character. Now, if you're a believer, it's a no-brainer to you. You already believe that he's real, but if you don't, if you're not a believer, there have been discussions about whether or not whether he really lived, and whether he's just a fictitious character. So we provide a case. We show that there's external evidence outside the Bible. For example, Pontius Pilate, who was the governor at the time, he's the one who presented Jesus before the crowd and said, "Hey, do you want him or do you want Barabbas?" Well, for a long time, people used to say that person didn't exist. But in the 20th century, in the 1900s, we discovered, which I think was in the past 50 years, if my memory serves me, there was a stonehead that was found for Pontius Pilate. And so now we have evidence to show that character was real. Mm-hmm. And so it helps to validate the stories of the Bible, which as a believer, again, we already believe and know that it's true. But for anyone who's not where we are in our faith walk, they see evidence outside of the Bible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how long has the Reclamation Project been in existence?
So we started in July of 2017. So we're just at about 2.5 years now. So we've been going for quite a while, for a little bit of time, got a little time on our belt.
All right, all right. So your focus is mainly non-believers. How did you come to know that your ministry was in really reaching the lost?
So I think I speak for probably most Christians when I say that when they encounter an atheist, for example, whom I love with a passion, and people who are believers, we love them as well, but we do like to sort of isolate them when we talk about them. And it's because, atheists are, and other non-believers, agnostics who are somewhat in the middle, they sort of act as a thorn in the side of many Christians. And what I mean by that is that they ask a lot of tough questions, and they come with an attitude that Christians interpret as disrespectful and blasphemous. They say things that we wouldn't say. And while I do believe that oftentimes they're doing that to try to get at Christians, sometimes they really do ask. They have honest inquiries. They're asking because they want to know, they're giving the Christian another chance to provide some sort of substance to help them become a believer in God. But because they have this sort of reputation for being that difficult crowd, they're not, as I dare say, embraced as much as other audiences, other people who may be on the fence, believe that there's a higher power, but not quite sure how it works out. Though they're a little bit easier for the Christian to work with, but the atheists they're difficult. And so you go to many churches and they're not embraced that much. It wouldn't be, atheists just might get kicked out. Hopefully no church will actually confess to this, but I mean, the reality is if an atheist comes in asking questions that the church finds blasphemous, they're probably not going to last long. But when I began to talk with them, I discovered that, many of them had the same beginnings as a Christian. And so when they were asking questions, they were really honest. And the fact that they were somewhat offensive to most Christians, they weren't actually offensive to God, because God actually welcomes honest inquiries. The fact that they were that way, it didn't bother me. And so I decided that, they need to have a place where they could come and feel comfortable asking all the questions that they wanted about God, and we would do our best. If I can't provide an answer for them on the spot, I'll do my homework, and by the next time that we meet, I'll have an answer for them. And it turns out that the Bible does provide lots of science and evidence, and it's like he knew in the 2000s or in the 1900s, the 2000s, that the world would be very secular and would be asking for substance, of something a little bit more than just grandma said or the pastor said that. Mm-hmm. And he put it there. And in my studies in the past 10 plus years, I've just been uncovering and discovering. I'm not the first to do this, but I've been discovering all of this science, all of this evidence, and they've been eating it up. And so the Reclamation Project seems to have a place in this world, and more specifically here in the Bay Area and South Bay.
So tell us where you meet and how often you meet.
So we meet down in South Bay in Santa Clara, right around the corner from Valley Fair, for those of you who are familiar with that nice mall. And we meet currently once a month. And our goal in 2020 is to move to at least 2 Saturday afternoons per month. But right now we meet on the second Saturday of every month. I guess I can post the address and all of that information later. But we meet in Santa Clara.
You can give the address.
Yeah. Let's see, the address is 1957 Prune Ridge Avenue in Santa Clara, California. So 1957, like a 57 Chevy. Prune Ridge Avenue. That was the best way for me to remember it.
Okay.
In Santa Clara. And we also have social media where we're posted everywhere from Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter. And our handle is Reclaimable Soul. And so our website is also reclaimablesoul.org.
And you all do live stream, correct?
We do live stream. Each month we live stream on YouTube. Each second Saturday. We've also just incorporated a pilot show that we are doing twice a month on a Friday evening for about an hour on Facebook Live. So we have a Facebook page as well. Same handle, Reclaimable Soul. And so each first and third Friday at 8 p.m. for about an hour, we have discussions. Again, we're having these discussions that you just can't have everywhere else, because I know, and you probably will agree, in many traditional church settings, there's just some things that are, some subject matter, some topics that are just a wee bit difficult to hold with the masses. And so they're not always as receptive, but the Reclamation Project is that place for you to come. Now, again, while we, particularly on second Saturday, we have this discussion about science, or that subjects about the Bible, about God, that revolve around how we can provide science evidence and objectivity. That's for the first hour. Now, and that's the equivalent of the Sunday school or a Sabbath school. That's where we study and we have discussion, and there are questions and answers and presentation. Now, after that, we have a worship service as well, and that's where things begin to look more like traditional church. So we've got praise, we've got music, we've got testimony time, we've got prayer, and we've got a word that comes to lift your soul.
So tell us who your guest speaker will be for the next second Saturday.
Absolutely. Love to put this plug in for this young brother. His name is James Doggett Jr. He's out of Orlando. I think he's in the somewhere suburbs of Orlando, Florida. He's an author. He's a highly sought after speaker. He's been international, and he will be our first speaker for 2020, James Doggett Jr. So we're looking forward to a big blessing from him.
Yay.
Yes,
all right.
yes.
Well, I want to thank you for stopping by
Thank you.
for sharing your early morning with your auntie.
Yes, ma'am. It is early, but I'm awake now.
Yeah. So I wish you all of the best in your ministry. You have a tough crowd.
Yes.
You've got a tough crowd, but
They
God has
are a tough
equipped you.
Yes, I love
For
them.
such a time as this.
Yes.
And for those of you who want more information on the Reclamation Project, you can go to
reclaimablesoul.org, and you can go to facebook.com/reclaimable soul.
Every Soul is Reclaimable.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
So we're going to get back into a little bit more music right here on KPFA 94.1 FM.